Good morning, everybody. My name is Nathalie Paquet and I will be your webinar moderator today. Welcome to this 10-10 webinar. Today we will present you the process from the research projects up to the standardization deliverables. And to guide you to this presentation, I'm here with my colleagues Andrea Gulaxi, Unit Manager of the Research Integration Service, and Luc Vandenberg, Program Manager in the same unit. Andrea and Luc, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you very much, Nathalie. As Nathalie introduced ourselves, I'm Andrea Gulaci. I'm a unit manager here in the CEN-CENELEC Management Center dealing with the research integration, so really the interface between standards and research. And I'm here together with my colleague.
I'm Luc Vandenberg and I'm a program manager in the same unit.
So we'll take you briefly through the context and the framework and the tools of transferring research results to standardization. Primarily, this is driven by the Horizon 2020 Research Framework Program, which is the current European Framework Program, FP8, for those of you familiar with the framework programs. And this program is, of course, ending in 2020, as the title suggests, but what the program did was given standardization a very strong or a very visible role. In the communication that sets the Horizon 2020 framework, standards were identified as a concrete market tool. And because the research program, Horizon 2020, deals with innovation, so is very closely linked to the market, standardization is one of the primary tools to ensure this transfer of innovations to the market. As you can see as well, the European Committee for Standardization, both CEN and CENELEC, are also identified on the European Commission website as one of the organizations to support researchers and project proposers in addressing innovation and in addressing different ways of transferring innovative results to the market. What we do here in the CCMC, so together with the colleagues in the unit, every year or every 2 years, Horizon 2020, the European Commission launches calls for proposals. Now, these calls for proposals are open calls for proposals, are open tenders, inviting researchers and the innovation community to submit their project proposals. We screen all these calls here in CCMC, and they make them available both on our website as well as send them to our members, primarily via our joint BT working group STARE, Standardization, Innovation and Research. Why do we do this screening? To identify where and how standardization has been identified by the Commission, by the calls, as a market tool. So the latest screening we did, which was at the end of last year and beginning of this year, showed that 37% in the pillar dealing with industrial leadership were referencing standardization, and 24% of calls in the societal challenges pillar were referencing standardization. And as you can see, the reference to standardization is very varied. So the challenge for us, for the national standards organizations, for the national committees, for the technical committees, is to guide researchers in interpreting and understanding how they have to address standardization correctly in their projects. So we're looking at mapping of relevant standards, there are calls looking at addressing standardization gaps, developing new standards, so contributing to the standardization work program, proposing standardization plans, sometimes also in cooperation with the international standards organizations, or very vague references to considering standardization when relevant. The links will take you to the screening, so to the tables that we made available, so that you see really the whole spectrum, the whole variety of calls. However, I selected a few for the purpose of this presentation, just to show you how the call is done, and then of course going a bit deeper into how then researchers interpret this and what the different mechanisms and different scenarios are for researchers to transfer their results into standardization by addressing these calls. As you can see in manufacturing on nanotexture surfaces, the reference made in the call is really that non-technological aspects key for the marketing of such products should be considered, for example, standardization. So that is quite vague. For someone on the researcher side not familiar with standardization, this could be interpreted in many different ways. Then in the second example, systems of materials characterization, the project may seek to agree standards for interpretation protocols. International standardization, e.g. with ISO, may be considered. So we're already going into a more clearer reference to the standardization organization. Then maintaining industrial leadership in aeronautics, the analysis of regulatory and standardization issues should be provided. Again, quite vague, so our role and the role of STARE, of our working group under the BT, is really to guide and explain and try to make sure that researchers have the correct information about standardization and address the correct scenarios in their proposals to transfer results to our work program. And the last example I selected is it goes very much into the detail and very specifically links to CEN-CENELEC. For tools and technologies for coordination and integration of the European energy system, proposals will demonstrate a good knowledge and compatibility with current regulations, but then in particular in connection to ongoing work in the Smart Grids Task Force and its expert groups in the field of standardization, e.g. CEN-CENELEC ETSI Mandate 490. So again, very, very specific. This is just to show you the variety of references, which of course, for those maybe not so familiar from the research and innovation side with standardization, sometimes creates confusion and sometimes creates maybe misunderstandings, which we try to guide and which we try to clarify so that we ensure this transfer of research results to standardization. The next slides are handing over to my colleague, Luc.
Thank you, Andrea. So let me show you first the deliverables published during 2016 that are known to CCMC to be closely related to an EU-funded research project. The examples here happen to be all resulting from an FP7 project, which is not that surprising considering that Horizon 2020 project usually did not start till January 2015. I counted 12 publications during 2016, of which 7 were CWAs, and they are shown on this slide, and I will come back later on one of them. You may ask, why so many CWAs compared to TC deliverables? And surely CWAs are an attractive deliverable because they do not require the same level of consensus as our TC-generated deliverables. But there is also a second reason. For CWAs, we know from their project plan that they are originating from a research project. For TC deliverables, this may not always be the case, so we may not know that a research project was at the basis of a TC deliverable. So TC secretaries inform us when you know a project is at the basis of a standardization deliverable. Let's have a look at the deliverables in a TC context on the next slide. Here are they, and here a first point of caution. The 2016 recorded cases give the wrong impression that ENs that result from research projects, that this is the typical route. In fact, this is not the case. The majority of TC generated deliverables are technical specifications or technical reports. And you will find this represented in the more detailed examples that I will briefly introduce hereafter. Technical specifications without the strong consequences of national implementation and withdrawal of conflicting standards are much more suitable to try things out. When a European standard is associated with a research project, it is because the project contributed to the EN, which was already on its way. And often we see that the contribution of a research project is to a revision of the EN. Let's now turn to the more detailed description of how the project and the TCs interacted. So there are 5 scenarios. Here is the first scenario, a research project directly leading to a new work in a TC. There was in this first scenario a clear indication from the start that the project would lead to standardization activities. It was clear from the example. in the example that the call was asking for standardization. It was even part of the call topic's title. And so the project that contributed here, the SPIDIA project, in this project there were several project members that had, at the project initiation stage, strong links with CEN-CENELEC that was covering in vitro diagnostic medical devices. And this of course made the uptake at the C level much easier. And in terms of standards resulting from this project, several CEN technical specifications have been published. There has now been a follow-up call under Horizon 2020, and DIN, who holds the secretariat of this TC, is a consortium partner of the new project SPIDIA 4P. And we can expect some further contributions to standardization as a result. The second scenario and example is the SuperCleanQ project. This project was about the development of processes and quality procedures for the valorization of recycled plastics for food contact applications. The description of work of the project proposal had described the development of a CWA standardization deliverable, but early discussions with the officials of CEN Technical Committee 249 on plastics led to a change of plans, and the aim became to develop a technical specification in the CEN Technical Committee. Here it was important that NEN, who had been subcontracted by the project to support the standards track, started to talk with the TC at an early stage of the project so that there was no delay incurred in starting the formal processes. As a result, the project was still able to lead to the publication of a new CEN technical specification during its lifetime. The third example is one where the CWA was delivered. The LCE for roads project was to address a methodology to characterize a safer and greener road products and infrastructures. The project was to deliver a CEN workshop agreement defining the indicators to be used in sustainability assessment of roads. As the scope of the CWA relates to activities taking place in two CEN technical committees, there was a strong need to ensure consistency with the other CEN work. For this project, our Spanish member UNE had joined the consortium as a partner. Considering the links with other ongoing work in TCs, a careful approach was needed. First, UNE investigated the standardization landscape and went to speak to the CEN technical committees involved in the subject in order to ensure that they understood where the links were with the TC work. And then, so having ensured the support of both technical committees for the work, the CEN workshop agreement process started in 2015 and the CWA was published November 2016. A fourth scenario is a scenario where the project entered into a project liaison relationship with the technical committee. This is taking place under Guide 25 that addresses partnerships, and where since a couple of years it is possible that research projects can have a direct relation under a liaison partnership with the technical committee. So you do not need to be an association or an organization, and also a research project is eligible to do so. And here you see some examples. Some are FP7 examples, for instance polygraph, for instance driver and hecto, and some are Horizon 2020 examples already, for instance resistant or Kraken. In a number of cases there is even no member involved. In a number of cases there is a member involved. It is so possible for, under this relationship, that projects participate directly in the technical committee to contribute and to listen what happens in the technical committee. Of course they do not have then the voting rights that are reserved for the national delegations. Then the final scenario is our contribution to the European Metrology Programme for Innovation and Research, or abbreviated MPE. MPE is a program funded with Horizon